Happy Monday and welcome to WWT Live. Today on the show, we're talking the power of partnership. What does it mean for the WWE to be connected to the Big 12? And a certain New Japan star has become a free agent. All of that and more today on WWT Live.
Howdy, folks. This is Willow Nightingale, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Shout out to Willow Nightingale, number 8 on the PWI 250 for her big shout out, of course, with WWT Live. What's going on, family? I'm Gerard Bonner. They call me the Professor. Somebody even calls me Teflon G around here. And it's good to be here. It was a great weekend in the space of pro wrestling, and there's a lot to talk about. We're going to even get into what happened in Charlotte at ASE Wrestling and so many other things that we're going to talk about. But I did not come alone. It would not be the same without a certain government official joining us. And he reigns over several domains, whether he is the vice mayor of Vicetown or now, I guess, the lion tamer of Lionsville. I don't know. I think I got that wrong. Either way, he's out from the streets. My man Seth is here. What's up, brother?
That is a lovely introduction.
Thank you.
I'm dressed like a official today. I'm actually wearing clothes. This is rare, but but Duke of Lionsville, Mayor of Vice City, so many other turns.
There it is.
We're not affiliated with Pound Town in any way, shape, or imagination, but we're here to we're not here to talk about my
exploits,
my run for presidential candidacy or anything like that. We're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about wrestling. And there's a lot of wrestling to discuss. And as we've seen, WWE has been all over the place the past couple of days.
Everywhere, including making an appearance this weekend at the Big 12 Championship. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was so I haven't really been that big into college football this year, but I saw the internet swirling all about this stuff. We had a number of superstars at the Big 12 Championship Game with Texas versus Oklahoma State. Of course, Texas won that game. A lot of people were talking about Big Evil handing Quinn Ewers a championship belt, which was interesting because, Taker's a big Texas fan. And a lot of people actually saw a viral video of Jade Cargill and Samantha Irvin singing Nelly, because I believe Nelly was a halftime show. And a lot of people were tweeting out that the yams are touching the mac and cheese. If you get that, you get that.
Wow.
But that's what went on. That's what went on this past weekend. But it's like we were talking about it off air. It speaks to the star power of WWE when they can just pull up and kind of be the conversation at an NCAA football game. But also, these so we made fun of it a little bit, but you know how they're doing those NFL championship belts things.
Right.
Imagine if they get an NCAA partnership and they start having a championship belt for like every college, like D1 college university in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And like fans are going to be buying those in droves just to try to get on TV with those things.
Absolutely. I think this again is showing the power of Nick Khan in the space that he's in. Nick Khan certainly did a lot as an agent, but did a lot with these kinds of partnerships. I think that helped with the NFL one, and certainly that was a big deal with this Big 12 situation. Part of this that also happened is the WWE logo was literally on the 50-yard line right above the Big 12 championship logo in this football game, which is crazy. Big 12, one of the biggest conferences in all of college football. And so as you're talking about this idea of, WWE potentially having this line of championship belts, it makes sense considering the NIL program and the connection that WWE has to these major colleges. Plus, I think it's also interesting when you think about the idea that if they have these belts going on and a lot of the fan base that they're after is usually right there in college as well, this is like one of the biggest wins ever for WWE when you just think about them being in the marketplace. So shout out to them. And as you can see, the superstars that were present, we're talking about, Samantha Irvin, who is the ring announcer for Raw. You've got The Undertaker and Michelle McCool. Undertaker, of course, a Texas native. Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, and Jade Cargill. Like, this is not a random, this isn't like your B League or C League or D League kind of superstar here. You're talking about literally household names one way or another that were a part of this. And needless to say, WWE swirling around was pretty major. Shout out to some folks in the chat. Christina, welcome aboard. TK promised you a family-friendly show. Well, we're going to do
She lied. It's Monday. That's a lie.
Crazy things get on a Monday. So go figure. Boza, good to see you. Yes, this is all Nick Khan. I don't remember Vince going for partnerships like this. Nothing wrong with it. I agree. Dylan,
and I didn't know about the logo being on the field thing. That's huge.
Yes.
If that spirals over to like college basketball,
think about that.
That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I had a picture of it, and I meant to incorporate it here in our slides today. But the graphic, the visual alone of seeing the WWE logo. Think about this. We talked about the Vince McMahon days, and it seemed as though WWE was kind of, for lack of a better term, at odds with the other sports organizations in an attempt to prove itself as the superior sports organization. So you didn't see those kinds of partnerships. You'd see, the occasional retired NFL player or maybe the current NFL player show up, like we saw with, LT during that WrestleMania 11, I believe, or even dating back to William the Refrigerator Perry from the Chicago Bears at WrestleMania 2, but generally speaking, there wasn't the kind of partnership where WWE branding was on somebody else's event. So this is a pretty remarkable moment right now for WWE. And the fact that the socials were abuzz about all things WWE, more so than the game itself, says a lot about the star power of
those
WWE.
funnels gonna get a lot stronger. You don't make it to the league.
Right.
You don't want to be a real estate agent after college or anything like that. WWE has a home for you, ex-athletes, and that's what they're saying.
Absolutely. Shout out to Eric, who says Liv Morgan was in the Sunday night game last night, and her and Simone Biles beat Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah.
So Simone Biles' significant other, husband, plays with the Green Bay Packers. So they actually flexed this. They actually flexed the Chiefs and the Packers to Sunday Night Football versus. I don't know why they flexed that game. Actually, I do know why. Because I think in the space was originally the game of the week, which was the 49ers and the Eagles. But they flexed that game because they knew Taylor Swift would be in Lambeau.
Got you.
So that was a thing.
Got you. Dylan says, set is in a button-up, something is up. That's hilarious. Special Little Nobodies welcome says, I like how WWE has been moving since the merger and the formation of TKO, like a big entertainment company should. I agree. I think these are some of the great benefits that this particular connection under Endeavor allows WWE to do. Plus, again, Nick Khan is that kind of guy. He's looking for those kinds of brand connections and brand partnerships. And again, I think we see the power of partnership. You get the WWE logo on a major college platform like that, and that's going to be on a major network, as it was, and it's a thing. It's a real thing. So I'm excited about that for WWE and for everyone involved. So
they get a rotating ad for March Madness. That's going to go crazy. That's going to be nuts. Considering
March Madness weekend, particularly the Final Four weekend, I should say, is usually up against WrestleMania. So that ought to be crazy. But you're right. If they can do it all through March Madness, which wouldn't surprise me, that'd be like gold.
Because you think about it, you think about the parallels with WWE and former football players, but also former basketball players. You look at Omos, you look at Lash Legend. They
Yep.
have former collegiate athletes that were not too long ago playing basketball on the collegiate
Right.
stage. So it only
Right.
they're moving very smart when
Mhm.
they're building more bridges and creating more
Yes.
opportunities for themselves.
Hence the title of today's show, The Power of Partnership. And that power of partnership was certainly on display at the Survivor Series now 9 days ago. The event, which had the whole world talking, has broken all sorts of Survivor Series records. So, according to WWE, it was the highest viewership, the largest gate, and the best merchandise sale in the history of Survivor Series. Now that goes back 37 years, which is crazy. Viewership for this Survivor Series was up 44% compared to last year's Survivor Series, and a record was set there, which is crazy. In terms of attendance, 17,138, which broke the Survivor Series gate record set in Brooklyn in 2021. We talk about partnership. The partnership with Fanatics helped to break the premium live event all-time merchandise record for the Survivor Series, where sponsorship revenue was up 24% over last year. Then, of course, we've talked more about the digital engagement with CM Punk. As of Friday, that Punk clip was viewed on WWE social something like 92 million times. So, yeah, WWE is cooking with extremely hot grease.
It's crazy to think about this, and I feel like this is an evergreen statement with WWE and breaking records. It's been happening all year. So naturally, if you have a company that's breaking records and pulling in all this revenue, if in the sports world, like money is dominating, I think we're in a grand phenomena of sports betting right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can even do sports betting for pro wrestling now, but like we're talking about building those bridges, it only makes sense to want to be a part of that aura of a company that's continuing to break records. Now, I'll be honest, this wasn't my favorite Survivor Series. I'm a purist. I love 5-on-5 elimination matches. This didn't have that, but also justifies the formula they're putting in place for future War Games events, maybe tying in NXT in that in the next year, something like that. But and I think people will be quick to say that a lot of this is because of the CM Punk reveal, but I think a lot of the content on the show was monstrous on its own. Like we knew we were going to get Randy Orton, we knew we were going to get a bunch of things, and the women's War Games was amazing. So, but like the fact that they can have this, I think what 5 matches?
Yes,
just 5, and break records. I'm talking about the history of Survivor Series. Survivor Series has been on, I think, since the late 80s.
Yep, 37 years, 1987.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Yeah,
that's nuts to think that it has topped every previous Survivor Series. Think about all these amazing Survivor Series moments that were in history. Talking about the Alliance angle, the the takeover angle, the Montreal Screwjob, and this with CM Punk, of course, the most viewed tweet of all time. Since WWE has came to Twitter. All time.
And they've had a lot of most viewed tweets of all time this year alone. I mean, think about, we go back to the top of the year when Sami Zayn got kicked out of the Bloodline at Royal Rumble. That was the most viewed tweet. And then it turned into when Jey Uso super kicks Roman Reigns. And then we look at when The Rock showed up, right? And then there was a point where Jade Cargill's signing was the second most viewed tweet in all of WWE history. And so we're when you are constantly breaking these kinds of records, we got to acknowledge we're in a super special time for the WWE. And let's think about this. Those numbers are significant in terms of best viewer or most viewership because CM Punk didn't show up on the Survivor Series, but for the last 3 minutes of the show. So clearly, by the time it happened, there wasn't enough time for people to run and tell people so that they could tune in and view. Right? So WWE had done an amazing job in building the kinds of stories that made us want to watch this show, regardless of CM Punk being involved. And the fact that there was no bloodline involved. I mean, think about that. the Bloodline story, which had been the biggest story for the last 3 years, which headlined last year's Survivor Series, really was nowhere to be found this year. And that's kind of amazing when you think about the kinds of numbers that WWE is doing. Let's see. Dylan says this is the best Survivor Series since WWE versus the Alliance. It was a really, really good one. Shout out to JD. Good to see you. Boza says the Intercontinental Champion was negative 5,000 to beat The Miz. I know predictable can be good, but I don't remember anyone in wrestling a negative 5,000 favorite for sure.
That's a stat.
Then that is a stat. And then thank you for this special little nobodies. Who can forget the gobbledygooker?
Giant egg.
Which I believe was the same year that The Undertaker debuted as well in 1990. And that was all super crazy.
That was Undertaker fresh off basketball too.
It's you're exact fresh off of basketball and WCW. So that was, I think WWE could have broke more numbers if they had an egg in the gobbledygooker. That's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, we're talking about the power of partnership, of course. Big things at the Survivor Series. One of the big names or big moments was the announcement of a certain free agent, that being CM Punk. So that makes 2024 very interesting, with talk of another massive free agent hitting the market in 2024. Said, do you want to tell the people about this? Because this is massive news on a world pro wrestling scale.
So yeah, it's being reported that Kazuchika Okada is a free agent set for 2024. The face of New Japan Pro Wrestling. We know he's made some appearances at AEW, but he's on the market. And it's tough to say where he might land. He's been in New Japan. That's been his home. We know he's come over to the States for, what's the name of that event? I can't think of the name of the event right now.
Forbidden Door.
Forbidden Door. So naturally, people will probably gravitate to their AEW relationship and what they have with New Japan. But when you see a company breaking records like this, and Triple H actually coming out in the public and saying that your traditional Asian stars won't be portrayed how they were in the past on programming going forward, on top of the TKO merger, you have to think that something could change here. We know WWE's not the only game in town, and it hasn't been for a while now. But when you have that type of star power and platform, and traditionally it being like the end game for a lot of wrestlers for at some point in their career wanting to come over, there's going to be dream matches on both sides. And I think a lot of people were looking at the Shinsuke call out before we ultimately saw it was Cody Rhodes. They thought it would be Okada if they would have waited a little bit longer, but it's going to be intriguing. I think this will be a true bidding war. I think Ospreay was already determined long ago. This would be a true bidding war.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to see what you guys think about the idea of Shinsuke Nakamura as a free agent, as his contract wraps up in end of January. And what's even crazier is this story was broken by our friends at Sports Illustrated, which, I mean, the idea that they broke this story is kind of amazing to me, actually, when you think about it. So, the possibilities here are endless for Kazuchika Okada. Obviously, you look in AEW and you see how AEW to some degree has a lean towards New Japan. Obviously, they have a relationship with New Japan. The ultimate question becomes, what would AEW do with a Kazuchika Okada? Now, in terms of the kinds of matches you can have, we know about Danielson. Him and Danielson will go at it again at Wrestle Kingdom in less than 1 month's time, by the way, which I think will be interesting, on January 4th. But you also have in AEW the potential for another insane match between Okada and Kenny Omega. That's an option. My God, as hot as Swerve is right now, can you imagine Swerve and Okada, which would be crazy? A lot of opportunities there potentially for Kazuchika Okada. On the WWE side, I think that could be even more interesting. Given the current landscape for Japanese and Asian superstars in WWE, there may be no better time than right now. to be in the WWE. To see both Io, Sky, and Asuka at the top of the card as part of Damage Control. Io, of course, being the women's champion. The resurgence we're seeing of Shinsuke Nakamura. And previously you could say that some of those stars were not getting the kind of attention that they were. Imagine potentially Okada and AJ Styles going at it again in WWE. Like, are you kidding me? The kinds of matches we could have. Kevin Owens, good Lord, Finn Balor again. Gosh, Seth Rollins, of course, and my God, CM Punk. Like, we really
That would be an
have
awesome get for them if they can land it.
Considering that it looks like money is not an object, it'll just, I think, ultimately be a question of, would Okada want to come to WWE? And, what story would they tell with a Kazuchika Okada? That would be very, very interesting. We've got some great comments here. Boza says he'll be the hottest free agent. I think everybody would want him. And I don't think he finished his thought about Shinsuke, but we'll figure that out. Some dream matches for Okada, for Dylan, for sure. Now this is interesting. If he comes over and joins Shinsuke, that'd be pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah.
Special little nobodies. Depends on how hard he wants to work. AEW fan base and wrestlers know him. WWE will be harder for him. Maybe, maybe not. Because I think that'll all depend on how WWE introduces him. And if you remember the ways, and some might not remember, but remember, we had this Asian infusion into NXT initially, from Asuka to Shinsuke to the artist currently known as Kenta, the former Hideo Itami. They all got great introductions, and they all did well with the exception of Hideo Itami. And that's because, his body didn't exactly hold up on him as he had hoped. Okada doesn't want more creepy hugs from the fake TK. That's hilarious. Boza, if Okada doesn't want to get hurt all the time, go to WWE. The AEW doctors don't know. Brian Danielson has gotten hurt more in AEW than WWE. That's pretty interesting.
That's a strong take.
It is a very strong take. Very strong take. The promos would be something. We've seen Asuka and Shinsuke that subtitles or not speaking in their native tongue does hit. Yeah. Oh, subtitles or not. I got it.
Wait till they bring back underwater Io Sky. Just wait. Wait till they bring them promos back.
Oh my gosh. Nakamura is getting a push allegedly because they want Okada. I don't know if that's true or not. And now
I wouldn't say that. We're not going to act like Nakamura not a big star now. He
is a massive star, and I think he has not had the kinds of opportunities on SmackDown or Raw that he has deserved. So I think this is kind of a good payback for him. And I'm
me and the professor will be quick to remind you how Nakamura started this year. And Pro Wrestling Noah on January 1st, they had that was before the merger ever was complete.
That's right.
So we already had the blessing to go overseas, do his thing, and come back. They respect the hell out of Nakamura and that company.
Absolutely.
It's like something about divine timing. Everything has to align properly. And now he's going against arguably the face of the company.
And not to mention, he had a major program with Seth that I thought did some great things for him. So some great opportunities there for Shinsuke Nakamura. So we made this mention, of course, of Okada, his relationship with AEW, and AEW's biggest show for 2024 is already on sale. As this past Friday, we saw ticket sales begin for AEW's All in London 2024 at Wembley Stadium. And according to Tony Khan, day one was a huge success, as AEW on day one sold over $4 million in tickets on day one. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. Nearly 34,000 tickets is what that equates to. And mind you, we are still, 9 months out from the show? So, we thought it was pretty amazing earlier this year when they put those tickets on sale in like May and did 60,000 in day one for a show in August. So I think All In 2024 is shaping up to be a massive, massive show for AEW. And with this level of planning already, in the works, you got to wonder, what will they bring to the table there in August? And it seems too far away to think about, but do you think we could potentially see a larger attendance this for All In 2024 than we did for All In 2023?
I think it's certainly possible, just because they already have more than dipped their toe in the water overseas and got the great fan reaction from the show, their biggest show. I was actually trying to survey this graphic here. This graphic is very interesting because
It is.
there's somebody that's missing from there, if you want to
Correct.
read into the tea leaves there. But I think it's kind of interesting that your AEW World Champion is not on the graphic whatsoever.
At all.
But they have 9 months to plan, and I think it's natural they're going to put on an even bigger show because they're going to learn from the first show some of the things they can improve upon, and also maybe even pack it out more.
Yeah,
I think it's likely since there was a lot of backlash over the truth in numbers and things like that kept coming out a month out from the actual show. I think they'll be able to improve on those things and beat themselves with not only the sales, but the attendance, the timing, and how the show flows and runs. I think it's going to do extremely well.
Yeah, I think we as the American audience learned a lot at All In London 2023 about how the international audience receives AEW. I think we were measuring whether or not they would buy tickets based on how the American audience has responded, and we were clearly proven wrong. I remember people saying, I remember people saying, hey, if they sell 25,000 tickets, they're doing something. So to see that they did 81,000 or whatever number people are debating, the bottom line is they brought in a gate of like $8.4 million. It's incredible when you think about that. And so for them to on day one do $4 million, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So let's see.
Like the fake TK was saying, he made some room so Taylor Swift can have some more dates. Maybe the Swifties show up and help out. Maybe somehow he gets Taylor Swift booked on the show. Who knows?
He can land Taylor Swift, that would be a crazy, crazy moment. Like a crazy, crazy moment. Dylan says, I think All In 2024 will already knock this year's out of the water. I think so too. I think they're going to learn from what worked before. Like, for instance, I feel like for All In 2023, they wanted to prove they could do an arena show, or a stadium show. Now that they've done that, now the question is, okay, how can we improve upon it? What can we do that would make this better? Special Little Nobodies, I forgot about that. This could be the perfect time for him in WWE. I'm sure Triple H wanted that Japanese talent infusion to work better than it did, for sure. Let's see. So Dylan asked, did this graphic come out before or after Drew was left off the Rumble poster? The answer is before. Before. So that too is very, very interesting. It'll be interesting to see the final number for 2023 All In. It's been argued to between 70 and 80K. Here's what isn't arguable. That's the biggest crowd in AEW history. That's not up for debate. And whether it's 70,000 or 80,000, it's more than most people thought they were going to do. And that 8.4 million is still 8.4 million. So I think they're very, very happy about that. Dylan says the awkward hug between fake TK and Taylor would be insane. All In Brawl 2024, fake TK versus Travis Kelce. That could be hilarious. So
I didn't even think about a Travis Kelce appearance, but yeah.
That certainly could happen, and who knows how their relationship will progress come August 2024. So that should be fun. That should be a lot of fun. And so since we're talking about AEW, it's also a good time to talk about their current round robin tournament called the Continental Classic, which week 2 of that wrapped up Saturday night on Collision. And the way things look, if you are following in the Gold League, which has been right now exclusively on Dynamite, In the lead right now are both Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland. They both have 6 points. Roosh and Jay White each have 3, and Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal have 0 points. Meanwhile, the Blue League, which is contested on Collision, sees what I think might be a shocker right now. Brody King stands alone on top of the Blue League with 6 points after defeating former Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli. We also see a 3-way tie for second place between Claudio, Andrade El Idolo, and Bryan Danielson, who won his debut match this past Saturday against the Ring of Honor and Pure Champion, the Ring of Honor and New Japan Openweight Champion, Eddie Kingston. And Eddie Kingston and Daniel Garcia currently have 0 points, which means things could get really, really dangerous next week with the Continental Classic, because basically if Eddie Kingston doesn't win a match, he will statistically be eliminated from the possibility of winning this thing, which means we're guaranteed to have a new Ring of Honor World Champion and a new New Japan Strong Openweight Champion. So let me ask you.
That's so interesting.
It's crazy. Think about it, because they each only have 5 matches. So the most amount of points you can have is 15 points. So at this point, he would have to win all 3 matches to have 9 points to even be anywhere in shooting distance. If he loses next Saturday, there's no way he could win with 6 points. No way possible.
So theoretically speaking, the eventual winner of this contest could technically dethrone Eddie and take his belts without actually ever having to beat him for the belts.
That is correct. That is correct. Eddie Kingston, for you guys who didn't catch that, Eddie Kingston, of course, put up the New Japan Strong Openweight and the Ring of Honor World Championship in this Continental Classic, along with the newly created Continental Classic Championship. This is going to create the North American Triple Crown. And to Ced's point, because of the round robin nature of this, it is very possible that Eddie Kingston will lose both of those titles without ever being in a match with the potential winner. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
I don't know if that's fair, but I mean, it certainly makes things interesting.
It does. And then you could make the argument that if the titles were on the line as part of this, wouldn't the first person that beat him last week be the champion? But
which he lost to Daniel Bryan, right? Oh, sorry, Bryan Danielson.
Well, he lost to Bryan Danielson Saturday, and then the week before that, he lost in his first match. And I'm trying to remember who that was up against. Let me look here. Somebody out there knows. Oh, it was against Brody King. No. Yeah, I think it was Brody King. I think it was. Somebody fact check me. Tell me who who Eddie Kingston lost to in week 1 of the Continental Classic. So here's the question to everybody. At this point, with 3 more weeks left, who do you think wins I almost called them A block and B block, but who do you think wins the Gold League and the Blue League and goes to the finals?
Getting a lot of Pokemon vibes from Gold and Blue League, so I do like that. I don't know. I feel like this is like, just looking at the way the ranking's set right now, I think it would be a disservice if Jay White isn't in the finals coming off that huge loss. But I think you have to, if you're going to continue building on Swerve, you have to elevate Swerve. So I'll go Swerve and Danielson.
Okay.
But I can also see Idolo, but Idolo's in a weird space where he's getting the promo time, has the manager now, but I don't know why they just don't go full send with him. And then also, I'm also on the fence where, like, this is Brian's last hurrah, and we know that's coming very fast. Time is moving, so put him in as many high-profile matches as you can.
Interesting. I'm trying to find this out. Of course they won't tell me now. I love it. I love it. I love it. Go figure. Anyway, this is gonna be very, very interesting. For me, I definitely think, the gold block is so interesting. I feel like Swerve should come out of there as the guy. Him being tied right now with Moxley, I think it's one of those two who win the gold league, and I think it's going to be Swerve who does it. On the blue league, I think that's interesting. Brody King right now leading is pleasantly surprising to me.
And I like it because I think we were talking about how everybody in the House of Black outside of Julia Hart were, I don't want to say scrubs, but that's kind of what we were talking about. It's like she's the most prominent member. So elevating one of the male talent from that group is necessary to make sure the group is promising as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And to that end, I don't think that Bryan Danielson needs to win the Continental Classic. I think him participating as injured as he is and maybe getting close to winning that block, him not winning it, I don't think is a bad thing. After all, one way or the other, he's going to Wrestle Kingdom, which is one of his dreams, to fight Kazuchika Okada. So he wins regardless. And besides, I don't see Bryan Danielson holding all three championships and then having to make his schedule that much tougher by defending the Ring of Honor World title and the New Japan Openweight title. Could be wrong, but to me, I love the idea of building a Brody King from this. Like, I really, really like that. For me, build him, Andrade, Claudio. I think one of them come out of the blue league. Whoever it is, I think they're going to lose a Swerve at World's End. That's just my opinion. But let's see. Yes, Eddie did lose to Bryan this week. I was trying to see who he lost to the week prior, and I can't seem to find that. I don't know why. Let's see. Eddie Kingston lost to the Ice Cream Man every time he hits the block. That's funny. That's really funny. Oh my gosh.
I mean, who doesn't love ice cream though?
Especially a good ice cream sandwich, right? Dylan says Swerve is definitely the man to take it from MJF. Doesn't matter when MJ win because MJF isn't going anywhere. And I think we've all kind of resolved that MJF won't be going anywhere. Yes.
To your credit, I don't know. So if Swerve was to win the whole tournament, I think that's a great space for him. But it might also be a disservice because we haven't seen as much Ring of Honor AEW crossover. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that keep him on that side almost too often?
So here's the somewhat controversial thing. Like, let's also remember that the current Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions are two guys who have never appeared on this iteration of Ring of Honor.
Very true.
That being MJF and Adam Cole. So I think that's pretty wild. So I was right. I must give myself props. Eddie Kingston lost to Brody King in week 1. So 2 points for the professor, or maybe 3, since that's what you win in the Continental Classic. Okay. So, this is going to be interesting to see how all of this goes down. I don't think that it's going to make Swerve exclusive to Ring of Honor. And I think there's probably a full Ring of Honor conversation to be had, considering that we're going into Final Battle, their final pay-per-view of the year, and it doesn't even look like you can really defend the Ring of Honor World Championship since it's kind of tied up in this Continental Classic. And my goodness, if Eddie Kingston loses this week, can you even call him the Ring of Honor World Champion going into Final Battle, since statistically he's eliminated from the tournament? So this is a pickle. Well, I guess people don't know, but it's a pickle nonetheless. And I think it should be interesting to see what happens with the Continental Classic. And shout out to Christy. I'm enjoying the Continental Classic. I am as well. I'm a fan of these kinds of tournaments. New Japan, I think, has mastered the art of it, doing it for many, many years. It's nice to see something like this on stateside for sure. So shout out to AEW for what they're doing. Moving then to WWE, because one of the big questions that came when we watched the Survivor Series and then watched Monday Night Raw last week was, where would Randy Orton end up? Orton showed up, of course, on Raw. Then this Friday showed up on SmackDown, and we found out that, he was going to be asked whether or not he would sign with Raw or SmackDown that night. Said, would you like to tell us what happened Friday night and where we'll see Randy Orton in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so I think on Monday we found out what the next plans were for Randy Orton. As he said, he's had unfinished business with the Bloodline, said he'd be on SmackDown Friday. And I'm actually liking this little budding GM rivalry we're building here. Whenever they decide to pull the trigger on bragging rights again, and I finally get my 5-on-5 elimination match or something of that nature, it'll actually have some storytelling to it. It'll have some build.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, Nick Aldis was aggressive in his push, signed Randy Orton to SmackDown. That's a huge get. And I think traditionally Randy Orton was Mr. SmackDown for majority of his career.
Mm-hmm.
So him being on SmackDown is huge for a number of reasons. It adds a layer of star power to the show, especially when Roman's not there. It also gives that Bloodline story another layer as we've been kind of dormant for a while. Mm-hmm. It gives Roman a viable threat because whenever you tee up Orton, you think of, hey, another title reign gets him close to Flair.
Yes.
Which there's a large audience, large contingent that actually wants to see that because Randy has done everything to earn that. Mm-hmm. So it's just another believable layer while Cody's doing the hard times thing on the other side of the road. But also just great to see Randy in that spotlight again. Seeing he was dwelling in a tag team for God knows how long.
Right. And who would have imagined that by the time he returned, his tag team partner would be gone from the company,
Altogether.
all together. So it's a great time, I think, for Randy Orton. And you're right. Him being added to the Bloodline storyline just kind of allows that to cook once again, because, again, really, it was the hottest thing up until WrestleMania for the most part. And it kind of got a little hot again once we got to the summertime. And but certainly we haven't heard much from it since SummerSlam. So, yeah, I think this is a great way to put some juice into that storyline, bring Roman back, give us some opportunities to see what this particular clash would look like. Dylan says that he looked more jacked on Friday than he did on Monday. I don't know what Randy has done with his body, but whatever it is, it works. And I think we are all jealous of it. And this has to be leading to a Scrap Daddy and Nick Aldis match or some sort of altercation. I think that would be interesting. Two former NWA world champions battling on a WWE stage. I think they both clearly could still go.
Survivor Series 2025. I'm just saying. Like, that's how you do it safely.
Anything is possible for sure. And so, but I do think Randy Orton is a great addition to SmackDown, helping to balance out that star power. Because again, what we saw on Monday Night Raw last week, a lot of star power in WWE. So balancing
and they're going to need it too.
Yeah,
that men's division desperately needs it. You're talking about the mid-card champion being Logan Paul, Austin Theory, almost forgotten after that really lengthy title reign. It seems like they still want to elevate Grayson Waller. So there's a lot of young stars that would benefit from being across from Randy on top of people like Solo, Jimmy, Roman, and those interactions. It's going to lead to almost perfect TV time on Friday nights.
Yeah. Again, making all of this must-see TV for the WWE. So one of the things that happened, speaking of SmackDown and Raw, a lot of people have been asking, which brand will we see Jade Cargill on? After all, Jade Cargill, one of the hottest free agents signed, and people have been wondering where will she be. We obviously saw her Saturday at the Big 12 Championship. Well, Jade actually started answering some of those questions while in Texas. We had a conversation with the Dallas News. Shall we discuss what Jade Cargill had to say? Let us know about that, kind sir.
Yeah, so when I think this happened before she got to singing the Nelly with Samantha, but spoke to the Dallas Morning News, and she said, so you want me to reveal what we have in the works, it seems like. So listen, I think the fan base should be patient. I think they understand that we're making a diamond. We're creating something that's going to be a legacy. We're creating something that's going to create echoes and waves throughout not just the wrestling culture, but pop culture and beyond. They're setting me up for success, and you shouldn't rush success. So I'm pretty sure that's the same thing that Triple H had echoed in the media scrum, is that it's going to take time, and they're doing everything to make her look like the star that she's going to be, and they want to make sure they delicately do that, because when it happens, like, the anticipation's already there, but when it happens, we're talking about this is going to break record moments as well. So I think when we spoke last week on the show, I can see this not even being the Royal Rumble, honestly. This they can literally drag this to the night after WrestleMania and have her and keep her doing the free agent thing here and there, maybe some appearances, maybe some physicality here or there, but no matches.
Yeah.
And literally carry that all through Mania, because the anticipation is only going to grow and grow and grow until it finally gets here.
Agreed. You know, I think Royal Rumble is an ideal place for people to have, you know, someone like Jade debut, because it doesn't have to be long per se. But one of the things that I think people are forgetting, and this is just, again, the elephant-like is that right? Elephants have long memory.
Elephants never forget.
Okay, so it's not the elephant-like memory. Thank you.
No,
it is. Well, no. What I want to say is wrestling fans don't seem to have elephant-like memory. And here's what I mean. Because the same people were complaining about Jade Cargill's title reign as the TBS champion in AEW, saying that she had horrible opponents, that she wasn't a great wrestler, et cetera, et cetera. And I think most people forget she's only been wrestling for 2 years. That's it. We're not talking about this accomplished in-ring veteran who's never been on WWE TV. We're talking about someone who had never been in a wrestling ring, showed up in AEW, went 60-0. Right? So she doesn't even really know how to lose. Let's talk about that. Because there are very few people walking in the space of WWE that are undefeated. Very, very few. So the question is, how would she lose? But bigger than that, you have to deal with the caliber of the AEW women's division versus the WWE women's division. Let's just call a spade, and this is no knock to anybody. While we obviously are proponents of women's wrestling everywhere, it's safe to say that the star power and the wrestling ability found on WWE's roster, you can't really compare what's on AEW's roster to WWE's roster. The depth of that women's roster, the legacy in that women's roster, the stars that are constantly being created. You know, the question is, who on the AEW roster that Jade battled could really compare to who's on the WWE roster? The only name I could think of is Athena. And she battled Athena before Athena had the Ring of Honor title run. This version of Athena is far different than the version that Jade faced. So I think it's only fair. You know, people are talking about, obviously, they want dream matches with her and Charlotte and her and Becky. Do you think that the Jade Cargill that held the TBS championship would fare the same right now against Charlotte and Becky? I don't know if that's a fair statement. So I think it's only right that both WWE and Jade mutually say, hey, I'm a star and I'm willing to wait until this meal is fully cooked, as opposed to getting it out early. Because if you get it out early, if she doesn't debut right, then people say bad things about Jade. And you only get, you know what I mean? You only get one time to make a first impression. And so I think they are handling this very, very well.
And I know the Royal Rumble is like very logical, but then when I think about it, because let's say she looks very strong in the Royal Rumble.
Right.
But and in my mind, if she looks that strong, you have to pay it off with a win. But then it becomes the delicacy of who eliminates Jade. Is it going to be a collaborative effort of like the entire women's locker room, which will keep her looking very strong? Or do you take an individual superstar like we're talking about, one of the big names, one of the Beckys, one of the Charlottes, one of the Biancas? Do you do that so soon without letting her appear on television in a wrestling capacity for a while. So I think they got to be being very careful about this is important because wrestling fans are fickle and they'll be quick to replay something over and over on Twitter and have opinions about it. So you got to be, they're handling her with kid gloves right now, and they should, because just looking at Jade makes you say, wow, like I can't wait to see what she does.
Right. It's going to be something very special. Let's see. Dylan says that Jade has to be on Raw with Cody. That's interesting. I
Cody may not be on Raw for long.
Well, there's that. And I don't know that Jade has to be on Raw. I still think NXT is a great place for Jade to at least start her WWE tenure. And to Dylan's point, Jade and Samantha Irvin, respectfully. Ashe. Oh, yes. And now Dylan says that Jade has to go on a longer streak than the AEW version. I don't know. I don't know, because that's a heavy ask. 60-0. So now we're putting her into Goldberg status. How many women are we going to sacrifice for Jade? Like 60-0.
I think people would sour on that too. People would sour on that too. When some of like the people, like we look at this run that Becky just had, pretty much like elevating other women's talent, giving them a chance to be in the spotlight with her.
Yeah.
But we know Becky has had peaks and valleys. So she's kind of earned that notoriety to do that, to like, hey, I want to wrestle Tegan Knox, Xia Li, Lyra Valkyria. So, but if Jade just starts coming nerfing all those talents who haven't really got to that level, that fans might sour on that very quick.
Yeah. So to your point, it is a very delicate thing in terms of how she is presented. Special Nobody says there are levels to things. They have a performance center. AEW had the Nightmare Factory. I would like to think they know what they are doing with her development. I agree. WWE knows what they're doing with their development. And I would also like to respectfully say that the Nightmare Factory was not the AEW Performance Center. I'll say that. All right. Yeah. Okay. So tonight is a very special night on WWE programming, as tonight we will see a rare World Heavyweight Championship match as Seth Rollins defends against Jey Uso. Now, while this title defense may make Drew McIntyre upset, what's really powerful is Jey Uso has actually dedicated tonight's title match to the memory of Umaga. Umaga, of course, his relative, I believe is his uncle. And Umaga ironically passed away 14 years ago today. So with that little piece of very important information, is there a possibility that we see a title change tonight? Or is that just way too far-fetched?
It makes you think, right? It makes you think that it would be a nice payoff for Jay to get that moment. But if they didn't pull the trigger with Shinsuke, they didn't pull the trigger with Drew, like I can't see it, honestly. I think we'll get a valiant effort and a great match that continues to showcase why Jay is a great single star on top of being a great tag team specialist. But I think whatever's brewing with Jay and Drew kind of overshadows that. And I think this character defining moments we're getting with Drew is going to. I don't think we're going to get a finish to the match. I'll just leave it at that. I think Drew is going to just get in the way of all this, and we're going to get a dusty finish.
You know what's so interesting about this? What's so interesting is I think most people have already resolved that the Universal Championship will not change hands at least until WrestleMania. I don't know if people have had that same kind of resolve with the World Heavyweight Championship. Some would like to think that perhaps Seth is going to take this into WrestleMania. I don't know. Considering that the real question could be none of the people involved in this, but currently the Money in the Bank winner, Damian Priest. Could he be the guy that comes out of tonight as the champion? You know, I think one of the things that WWE has done a good job of lately has been giving us moments that have made us have to tune in, you know? And so could tonight be the night that we see a world title change? I don't know. At first, when this match was announced, I was like, nah. But the addition of this Umaga piece, that changes some things for me a little bit, I think.
That's fair.
So,
That does.
you know,
And I
let's
keep
see.
forgetting about this briefcase, honestly. It's been
Right.
a while, and it's like, when does it happen?
Yeah.
I know I said perf. I think perf is logical, but
Uh-huh.
is it that unthinkable that he can cash in on Roman? Are we just disqualifying that altogether?
Oh yeah. I think so many people have put the idea of Roman losing to anybody out of their head until at least WrestleMania, that the thought of Damian cashing in on Roman is like so insanely far-fetched. Like nobody even, considers it. But let's see. An interesting question from Boza. The question is, does Jay win tonight? Does Mommy let Damian cash in? Drew's obsession costs Jay. I definitely think Drew gets involved in this some way. I don't know how. Boza says with Bengals versus the Jaguars is the football game of the week, I could see Jay winning. Now, there's a wee bit of potential petty connected to that, given the Jaguars connection.
I just caught that. So, I was like, what?
Yeah. So Boza could have a point there. He could have a point.
Yo, that's a different level of petty, man. I just thought about it. I would have never thought about that. Because I'm thinking like, wait, Bengals Jaguars is not that important for a game. But then when you think about the ownership, it's like, okay.
And the Jaguars look like they could be heading to the playoffs this year. So could be a thing. Let's see. There was some Nightmare Factory talk. Not sure. I just remember her saying she trained there. Yes, Jay did train at the Nightmare Factory. A number of other people have trained at the Nightmare Factory, but the Nightmare Factory is not an official AEW performance center. There are obvious ties between the Nightmare Factory and AEW. Of course, when Cody left, there then became ties between that and WWE. The Nightmare Factory has been a really good space for people who are training there to get tons of exposure in either company at this particular point. But, most AEW stars aren't necessarily training at the Nightmare Factory. So just wanted to mention that. Jags, you definitely made us laugh with that one, Bose, and that was pretty creative because again,
it makes sense. I just don't know how you pay it off if you make Priest the champion now. It's like, is he going to be transitional or what's his reign look like?
Things like for one, I mean, it could be a few things. I mean, the idea that Priest ends, or one or two things could happen. It could happen tonight, which would make Priest a double champion, but then that could also lead to the Creed brothers winning those tag titles and getting that off of Damian Priest. My other thought is if somehow Jey Uso wins tonight, you've got to think that Drew is coming to do something to cost him the title. You got to think that.
Absolutely.
So all of the more reason that makes Raw very interesting to watch tonight. So
I'm convinced now because I mean I'm in this mental space where Seth feels almost as unbeatable as Roman.
To a point, I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. And that's what'll make, because to me, I felt like Shinsuke had the best chance.
Yeah.
They had talked about the whole back issue. Shinsuke had attacked him well, so it would have made sense to me. But now I don't know. And then you throw Punk in the picture, but Punk doesn't have to fight for the title for a match with Seth at Mania to still be something that we want to see.
Exactly. So now you can strike while the iron's hot because we still have only had one title reign in the short genesis of this championship. So that's why not? Why not? We're less than 30 days away from the new year. You can maybe Priest enters Perf as the champion.
Wow. Pretty crazy. All right. I think we got 3 more stories and I think we can get into them pretty quickly. If you were listening to Busted Open Radio today, you may have heard a very popular Hollywood voice, that being the voice of O'Shea Jackson Jr., the son, of course, of Ice Cube, who, if you didn't know, he's a great follow on Twitter, and he's very, very vocal about being a pro fan, a major fan of pro wrestling, that is, particularly the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Great exchange happened today on Busted Open. You can certainly check out their podcast to relive that. And speaking of podcasts, if you like wrestling podcasts, this might be a sad bit of news, as apparently we have reached the end of the line for After the Bell, as WWE has canceled this podcast. They've not given an official reason why. Some thought maybe it was connected to, Graves, going out and having a baby and maybe not having time for the podcast. We don't know, though, the reasoning for it. The last show that posted was back on November the 10th. So shout out to After the Bell. They did total of 201 shows, and on episode 200, they celebrated by having John Cena, which is certainly a big deal. Boza says Seth has done a great job of making this version of the World Heavyweight Championship feel important. I totally agree with that. So congratulations to him. Last but certainly not least, wanted to take some time to shout out Darius Lockhart and the good folks over at ASE Wrestling. ASE Wrestling made its debut this past Friday night. Charlotte, North Carolina, Grady Cole Center family. Let me just tell you something. This show was special. Very, very special. I've had the privilege to be a part of a number of really cool shows over the last few years. This one ranks very, very high in terms of a special show. Some great talent, some historic moments. The Grady Cole Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, a place that has housed the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, Harley Race, so many important names, had history made Friday night, as for the first time, two women main evented in that building. And that, of course, being Trish Adora and the legendary Aja Kong. Oh my goodness. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. The show opened with a performance from Grammy nominee Lute, who is out of Charlotte, and that was amazing. There was just such a special vibe. Big Swole served as the host for the night. Shout out to just so many incredible people who were a part of this show. Chris Lee and D'Lo Brown were part of the commentary team, and I was part of the broadcast team as well. So got to do some cool interviews with some great people. Kevin Knight from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was there in the first match against frontman Josh C. An amazing match. Kiera Hogan was there. So many other people were there. The Infantry, an amazing match between Darius Carter and Jonathan Gresham. My God, this was amazing, like incredible. And I got to do a great in-ring interview as well with Darius Lockhart to talk about his future in pro wrestling, which ultimately set up the main event for the next ASE show. There will be another show in February. Really excited about that. So trust me when I tell you, you can still go and check this out. Incredibly done. From start to finish, everything was amazing. Check it out at ASEWrestling.com. There's some cool behind the scenes footage on my Instagram and Facebook and Twitter pages, which you guys can check out. Just kind of showing my experience there. Just an incredible night. Let's see. Boza says that was a show shouted out in Collision because Kiera went from that show. That is correct. She was there Friday night at ASE and then went on to Collision Saturday night. So, and it was just amazing. So check it out at ASEWrestling.com. All right. We're going to get ready to get out of here. Said, man, let the people know how they can reach you and what you've got going on.
You can find me on the Bird app or the Black app, whatever we want to call it these days, at Said Says. That's CEDD_SAYS. On the gram at Said Is The Answer. Check out my writing on dailyddt.com. Dropped a couple articles last week. Actually just dropped an article on this platform over the weekend. The Reno rankings are now live. So if you want to check that out, we actually have power rankings in our partnership with BWA, Black Wrestling Alliance. Go check out our top reinas of the month of November. There's a nice article on WWTtalkpod.com where you can see how I outline what the reina rankings are and who our number one reina is for the month. But check all that stuff out, and also support Women's Wrestling Talk, support ASE Wrestling, support pro wrestling in a positive manner.
I love that. And yes, that's a great reminder. The debut of the Reina ranking is out, and that, of course, is looking at the top 10 women's wrestlers of the month. This is going to be a regular thing, a great partnership, again, power partnership between Women's Wrestling Talk and Black Wrestling Alliance. Just makes all the sense in the world. So make sure you are checking that out. Find out who we have ranked as the top 10 women in the month of November, and you'll be able to find out why. I think that is absolutely awesome. Shout out to all things Women's Wrestling Talk and Black Wrestling Alliance. You can find me in a lot of places. You can follow me on the socials at Bonnerfied. You can also check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling and IWE on IWTV. And speaking of Southern Honor, I will be back there this Friday for SHW 57. It should be incredible. So if you're in the Atlanta area, make sure you come check us out. You can also check out my commentary work with All Caribbean Wrestling right now on their YouTube page. And I just got word of some things coming up with them for 2024. I'm looking forward to that. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure, in the days and weeks to come. Also, brand new student showcase for the Nightmare Factory. We were talking about the Nightmare Factory during the show today. You can check out the latest graduates from there in Student Showcase 11. I'm doing commentary on that one as well. That's on the YouTube page for the Nightmare Factory. And check out their main event, the first time ever a female main event for the Student Showcase, as Isis Reed takes on Angelica Risk. Angelica Risk has been featured on Ring of Honor and AEW, graduate of the Nightmare Factory. Isis Reed is special. 16 years old, the youngest graduate in the history of that school, and she's amazing. So make sure you guys check that out. And of course, ASE Wrestling had my premiere with them this past Friday. You can check that out at ASEWrestling.com. Check out all things Women's Wrestling Talk on our website, www.talkpod.com. All sorts of really cool interviews and content coming. We got word earlier today of a certain superstar who will be interviewed by Women's Wrestling Talk very, very soon. So you'll be able to see that on a screen near you. So stay connected to us. You see that cute little QR code in the upper right-hand corner of your, yes, budding superstar who is going all the way up. I love it. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the QR code where you can purchase great merch here from Women's Wrestling Talk. So make sure you're checking that out. Make sure you're following us on the socials at WW Talk Pod. Shout out to everybody in the chat, Boza and Special Little Nobodies and Dylan, and man, so many people joined us today in great conversation as always, which I greatly appreciate. Love you guys hanging out with us with all of this great conversation. JD, I saw you in there. Eric, I saw you in there. Christina, I saw you in there, and I hope this was the family-friendly show that TK promised you.
It was mild. It was mild. You know?
We were on our best behavior. So, but listen, until next time, family, we will see you back here on Wednesday. No telling what will happen in the world of pro wrestling between now and then, but we'll be here to talk all about it. It's part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go off. This is Shayna, the Queen of Spades Baszler, and you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.